you do not have to be a pacifist and a hawk. Those are not the two extremes.
And in fact, being in the middle is probably the best thing.
The best thing to do. And Putin respects Trump because he knows how to wield his power well. Not recklessly, and not allowing it to wither away into frailty. He knows how to use it. And Putin respects that. Kim Jong-un respects that. These leaders of these countries respect that. These countries outside of the Western world, here's the thing. Outside of the Western world, in the Middle East, and in the East, and in the Asian Pacific, and in Asia, with China, and
it's a totally different
it is a total different political climate, cultural climate of what they respect outside of the West. And ultimately, even in the West, what do all leaders of nations respect? And that is power. Hello everyone, my name is JD.
And this is Logan.
And welcome to the WireTap, and it's been a long time since we've been with you, both me and Logan. I posted a video about a week ago talking about some of the things that I wanted to change with the channel, some of the things that I was going to update, and I mean, we've put up some new logos, some new banners, just given everything a bit of an aesthetic facelift. I actually invested a lot more time into how it looks artistically, and we'll see if there's any changes in terms of programming down the road. We didn't want to do a complete facelift with the start of just a new year.
Yeah.
We'll do more of that once we get to volume 2, once we hit 1 year, and we might make a lot more changes down the road then. But we weren't here for the entire month of December. We were gone. And there's been a lot that's happened, and then you've had impeachment, you've had budget battles, you've had Iran. Yeah, I mean, you've had a whole myriad of things.
Can't even remember all of it.
That have happened, and then you've had Democratic debates. There's just been a lot going on.
Yeah.
It's been an exciting month that we have yet to even
crack into.
Yeah, yet to even hit the tip of the iceberg. So, I mean, Logan, you can. What do you think we should start with? I mean, what's eating at you?
I guess if it were for me, I would start off with Iran.
Yeah.
And the big thing that I noticed between the coverage of Iran right now is think back to the coverage a year ago with North Korea.
Mm-hmm.
It was almost like with the coverage with North Korea that they were baiting Donald Trump and they were wanting him to go into war, and I feel like they are doing the exact same thing with Iran.
They are stuck at this interesting juxtaposition, because if you want to see what being of a political mindset all the time and doing things for the purpose of political calculus does to a person, you just have to look at the left and their reactions to the things that Donald Trump does militarily, globally.
Yeah.
Because they did this with North Korea. They did this with, now they're doing it with Iran.
They did it with al-Baghdadi.
They did it with al-Baghdadi. They've done it multiple times. They had hints of this whenever we moved our embassy there in Jerusalem. They've done this multiple times to where they talk about how Trump wants to start a world war. But then, whenever he literally takes diplomatic actions that avert war, all of a sudden, he's betraying American interests. All of a sudden, he's showing weakness on the world stage, and they're advocating for a stronger response.
He holds summits with North Korea. He's the first president to ever walk on North Korean soil.
Yeah. he's had all these things because, I mean, you remember right after he got elected, I mean, you would have thought that we were on the verge of nuclear war with North Korea. And admittedly, tensions were high.
Yeah.
And action, was imminent. Mm-hmm. Some sort of military action was imminent. But it did not happen because things eventually did de-escalate because of actions that he took. And what the Democrats don't understand, and we'll specifically talk about Iran here and Soleimani. In fact, let's just talk about the airstrike. Let's just hit this whole Soleimani, this whole Iran ordeal right now before I get to the point I want to make here. I mean, we have our embassy attacked in Baghdad. Then the United States goes in with an airstrike, kills Soleimani.
Yeah.
And then, what was it, Wednesday or Thursday?
It was Wednesday night, I think.
Wednesday night.
No, I think it was Tuesday night.
It was
Tuesday night, I think.
Oh,
Tuesday or Wednesday night.
Tuesday and Wednesday. We have one of our military bases, ballistic missiles. They launched
11 of them hit one of the bases. One of them hit another base. 4 of them didn't hit any targets.
Yes, they launched ballistic missiles at one of our bases. There's no U.S. casualties, to my knowledge. No Iraqi casualties as well. There was no casualties whatsoever in any of these attacks. But it still just gives Iran enough to where they can go back to their people with their state-run media and such and say, look at what we did. We launched missiles and we attacked the Americans. We got them back for Soleimani. They can go back to their people and say that. But ultimately, it did nothing.
There was the controversy this week with MSNBC reporting Iranian state TV said 30 casualties, 30 U.S. casualties.
Yes. I had seen, whenever that was going on, and if you follow us on Twitter, and if you don't, we're at the CWire, capital TCNW. But while this was all going on, while this all was breaking, yes, on Tuesday night, I was tweeting about this, and I specifically said, be very wary of what you're seeing. Because I saw many, the accounts in conservative land, really in news land in general, but there was
one had something different.
Everyone had their inside sources telling them that this isn't looking good and that the United States needs to go to war. I saw estimates of like 80 people being killed, over 100. Like, I saw people tweeting that. And to my knowledge, those tweets might even still be up. If I tweeted something like that and it came out to be totally, utterly false, I would delete that.
I mean,
but yeah, I had seen like up to 80 people have been killed, and they're not even. These are early reports. But it'll be expected to be much more. I mean, there's nothing. There's nothing.
They can't be blamed. These are what their sources told them on the ground.
They're inside sources. But ultimately, this is a move that is just Iran trying to save face. They're just trying to make it look like that they are not totally, like their face did not just get totally pushed into the mud by America's boot heel. I mean, that's what it was. And ultimately, it did nothing. It did nothing.
No.
And the leftist media was going crazy. They were like, oh my gosh, he's gonna put us in a war. He's gonna make a speech tomorrow or tonight. That was the thing. CNN was reporting that he was gonna make a speech that night. He was gonna address the nation, and he never said any such thing. Then, what's his press secretary? The press secretary of the White House had sent out a tweet saying he'll make a statement tomorrow. So he makes a statement, and then, well, that wasn't nearly harsh enough. What pleases you people?
One thing, you think he's going to come out to the microphone that night and I guess say, I am going to ask Congress to declare war.
War on Iran. Well, I mean, it's far too early. Far too early to make any kind of determination. And if you're going off what Twitter was saying, yeah, you're thinking, wow, we're about to get into a war with Iran.
Yeah.
Because you're looking at totals of, there's 80 people, 100 people being killed. There's no casualties. It was a move by Iran to save face. Ultimately, And Trump did exactly what your conservative voices like Ben Shapiro, Matt Walsh, Dana Lash, a lot of your big conservative voices were all saying to do. And he did exactly what they said. And that was to just take the win and walk away. Ultimately, this didn't do anything. It doesn't change anything. It's just Iran trying to give something back to their people, their state-run televisions and their media. No different than North Korea or Russia, you know?
That's exactly
what
they
have to spin it in some way. They attack a base, and they're intercontinental. They're intermediate range ballistic missiles.
Cruiser.
Yeah,
cruiser missiles.
They're easily detectable by radar. And in fact, they said this. They had plenty of time to move their resources and the human lives inside of there to where there was nothing in terms of casualties, human casualties.
And
it was just something for the Iranians and their media to turn around to try to save face. And Trump did, in my mind, the right thing. He didn't need, I saw the criticism that, well, you know, he should have sent a stronger message in the speech that he gave. The message that he gave, the strong message that he gave came whenever they killed Soleimani. That was the strong message. And let me tie this back to the point that I was going to make 7-8 minutes ago. But this is how it all ties in. The message was Soleimani being killed. There's nothing that Trump could have said at that podium that really changes the Iranians' minds. All it does is for us, it makes us feel good. Okay? Us Americans that are sitting there watching that, it makes us feel good. There's nothing that Trump would have said that would have changed the Iranians' mind. Why? And this is why Trump has been so successful thus far, militarily, globally. That is because leaders around the world understand one thing, and that is power, and they respect that greatly. Whenever you are a person with power, and you know how to wield it, not recklessly, but you know how to wield it effectively, that puts fear inside of them. A respectful fear.
And I think you've seen Trump gain that.
And you've seen that, and I think that he has gained confidence in that ability as he has gone along as president.
And I think that the North Korea situation really was the first one. I think
that was trial by fire.
Yeah. It put it on the world stage for the entire world to see.
And you've seen this kind of stuff to a lesser extent with Russia in some way.
You saw it with Syria.
Yeah, in Syria, and now you have Iran. But that is what these leaders respect. And that's why, you know, people point to, well, why does Putin talk about Trump so much? You know, why does he say these things about Trump and give him advice? It's just proof that Trump is in collusion with Russia. You know, we just got through the whole Mueller thing, but, I mean, that's still alive and well in the underbelly. Well, that's because, well, I mean, for one, America's the number one superpower in the world, so you're always gonna have them in the midst of your discussions if you're nations like Russia or Britain, you know, any one of the EU nations.
Let's get real here.
They're always going to be there. But it's because Putin, unlike Obama, who was, even though that he conducted strikes in the Middle East, it was only by necessity that he did that. Which, I mean, that is to say, I'm not advocating for just unnecessarily going to bombing places, but I mean, Obama did it at such a late time and with so much just exasperated resignation that there was no fierceness behind it. He did it merely because he had gotten to a point to where resistance was just futile at that point in terms of public opinion and etc. And he did it, he resisted doing that until the very end. And then he did conduct some airstrikes across the Middle East, but they were very limited, very limited, and he was very restrictive on what he did. And the difference that you see in Obama and Trump and the way that Putin looks at them is because Obama was very pacifistic. You could see it. You could tell it.
Yeah.
He was very pacifistic in dealing with things worldwide to where military might could have been very useful and arguably necessary. Trump does not have that same pacifistic complex.
But at the same time, he does not have the war hawk.
He is not a hawk. And it seems troublesome for people to understand, especially on the left, that there is a difference and that there can be something in the middle. You do not have to be a pacifist and a hawk. Those are not the two extremes.
And in fact, being in the middle is probably the best thing.
The best thing to do. And Putin respects Trump because he knows how to wield his power well. Not recklessly, and not allowing it to wither away into frailty. He knows how to use it. And Putin respects that. Kim Jong-un respects that. These leaders of these countries respect that. These countries outside of the Western world, here's the thing. Outside of the Western world, in the Middle East, and in the East, and in the Asian Pacific, and in Asia with China, and
it's a totally different
it
political
is a total
game.
Different political climate, cultural climate of what they respect outside of the West. And ultimately, even in the West, what do all leaders of nations respect? And that is power. And Donald Trump is able to wield that power very effectively, and that is why you have seen these situations de-escalate in the way that they have. Because they realize he is not afraid, if need be, to use that.
Yep.
And for how many years, decades, have we had leaders that are indeed afraid to do that? All right, so let's shift gears here just before we hit the end of the episode and talk a little bit about the elephant in the room, which is impeachment, and just the ridiculous turn of events that has been going on in terms of the Democrats' trial and, then their vote and all their antics with that. And then you've had Nancy Pelosi sitting on the articles of impeachment and trying to direct how the trial is going to be directed in the Senate. And we come to where we are today, to where basically, Mitch McConnell has refused everything and he's going to go with it as he may.
Yeah, and the Pelosi thing just amuses me so much that she thinks that she can direct the trial in the Senate, but what happened to Chuck Schumer? Isn't he supposed to be taking care of this now?
Yeah, because, this is Pelosi's baby, though. And I don't know if there's a little bit... Schumer shot his mouth off too much, and he's in a position of leadership to where it doesn't matter what happens, he's going to own this. Okay, because just by default, because he's in a position of leadership. Okay? Yeah. Unless he comes out and vehemently decries this, he's associated with it.
Mm-hmm.
But this is kind of Pelosi's baby. This is kind of her project. And her... I don't even know what you want to call it. Just her show.
Yeah.
This whole thing, because this is the House. This is what happened. And she ultimately caved to the pressures of her own party, of the young blood socialists in her party, she held off as long as she could, and as soon as this stuff with the Ukraine call come out, she said, fine. And they've been charging full steam ahead until this point. And allegedly, Pelosi got this idea of sitting on the articles whenever she was watching cable news.
Oh, wow.
Interesting to note how Pelosi can literally state how she gets some of her ideas on what she does and takes directives from cable news.
But, oh, man.
But Donald Trump is on Fox and Friends, and he says that he watches Fox News, and the media loses their mind.
He is in Sean Hannity's and Rush Limbaugh's pocket.
He's in their back pocket. He is Rush on speed dial, and Rush Limbaugh is directing the White House.
Trump doesn't make a decision without consulting
This is
Limbaugh.
legitimately, there have been legitimate journalistic articles written to this effect. But folks, we said this for a long time. We have an episode on impeachment from way the crap back.
Our first episode?
I mean, it's from way the crap back, far in the year, from the summer, whenever we've been doing this WireTap series. I mean, it is far back in our chronology of this kind of stuff,
just,
from like September,
that's
August,
just
September.
Impeachment. That's not even these investigations.
That has nothing to do with this impeachment. We were talking about impeachment back then. They've been talking about impeachment forever. And it's all fruitless. It's all fruitless. And what is so scary, and this is what I said right after the vote, and I want to make sure I communicate this. What is so scary? God help the next Republican, and I even tweeted this, God help the next Republican who is in with a fully Democratic House and a Democratic Senate.
Yeah.
God help them.
The fact that, Adam Schiff stood on the House floor, and he stood there so proud of himself giving his speech after they passed them, thinking that they truly had the power to do this, and that they could just do this blatantly right in front of the American people's face.
Mm-hmm.
They knew that it was a failure, and they knew that it was nothing, but they were still going to do it anyway.
It was a nothing burger supreme, and they were still going to go forward with it. And it's even more evident now.
That is what is frightening. The amount of hatred that they can truly push themselves to.
The level that they can do, because they are threatened of what? Their power. They're threatened of having their power overthrown. God help the next person, because if this is what the House can produce, if this is what they can produce and impeach a president on, you can impeach him for anything. Abuse of power and obstruction of Congress. The second one doesn't even make sense, because he went to the Supreme Court. Ruth Bader Ginsburg herself put a hold on their request for his tax returns and his transcripts.
Obstruction of Congress.
It's fundamental.
Checks and balances.
It's the separation of powers. And there's so much more that we can get to, but I don't want to stretch this on for too long. So make sure you subscribe, follow us on both of our platforms here on YouTube, SoundCloud, and if you want to check out our way old episodes, you can go to the archive. Link is on SoundCloud. You can follow us on Twitter, capital TC&W, at the CWire, TC&W. And for Logan, I am JD saying goodbye, God bless, and we will see you in the next episode.